You may not know this about me, maybe you won't believe it now that I'm telling you, but I am a big fan of superhero comics. I have been reading them for decades. I teach college classes about them. I wrote a book about superheroes. The book has been published in Italy so far, but keep an eye on the catalog of Johns Hopkins University Press, and who knows, maybe you'll see an English version of my book coming out at some point. I'm telling you this not just for the sake of bragging and or shameless self-promotion, even though a component of that might be present here, I'm not denying it, but mainly to tell you that even though I am a big fan of superheroes, I'm not blinded by passion. I still approach them also from an academic, critical standpoint, and I believe I'm able to express a critical, informed opinion on things related to the superhero genre. Even though I love it so much, I try not to be carried away. And this is pretty important today that we are talking about Sentinels of the Multiverse, a co-op card game that was published recently. Clearly, it's inspired by the superhero genre, superhero lore. The players will take the role of superheroes that will be fighting against a supervillain each game, and the supervillain will be trying to do mischievous supervillainy things such as making the moon fall on the earth. How cool is that? So this clearly is a game that tries to capture the feel of the superhero genre, and today I'll tell a little bit about it, about how the game plays and whether or not it captures the superhero genre. This is how a four-character game may look like a start. In the middle of the play area, you have a villain area. Each villain has two cards, one with an illustration representing the villain and the starting health of the villain, and one with a text describing the setup that the villain will use. For example, this villain always starts with 3 citizens, that is 3 minions already in play. Villain cards have 2 sides, and the second side usually represents the villain in better shape, and each side will have a description of what is the condition that triggers the cards to be flipped. For example, in this case, if at the start of the villain turn there are 5 or more citizens in the villain trash, so if you have eliminated 5 or more citizens, then you flip Citizen Dawn's character card and this card to the other side, and once that happens, and for as long as these sides are up, Citizen Dawn is immune to damage. Look at that, she's impervious to anything you can throw at her, and so you just have to survive until you trigger the condition to return her to the side where you can start dealing her damage again. Then each game you will use a location deck, which you will choose among the 4 available. Here I chose Insula Primalis, this island full of dinosaurs, but you also have Megalopolis, you have a base on Mars, you have what's the other one? Oh yeah, the ruins of Atlantis, and the environment cards will describe different things that will happen, and sometimes extra monsters and enemies that enter the battle because of what happens in the specific location in which the battle is taking place. And then around the central area you have the areas where the players will place their character cards. Each hero character has a card with an illustration representing the character, a text describing the basic power of the character, the starting health of the character, and each hero character card also has another side representing the options that the hero has, the things that the hero can do once his or her health is reduced to 0, which doesn't mean exactly that the hero is killed, but just that the options of what the hero can do are now limited. And each hero also has a deck of individual cards representing special equipment, powers, abilities, things that the hero can use and rely on during the battle. Gameplay is extremely simple and straightforward. Each round starts with a villain turn, during which you draw a card from the villain deck, you put that card in play, and then you resolve the text of all the villain cards in play, including possible effects generated by the villain, him or herself. For example, in this case, you will have to resolve this card, and then this card, and this card. deals each hero target to cold damage coming from cold. There may be heroes that are impervious to cold, heroes that are particularly susceptible to cold, and this is why you have different types of damage. This other villain card will deal the two heroes with the most cards in play 3 fire damage each. As you can see, these minions also have their own health, so you have to reduce them to 0 before you can eliminate them. After the villain turn, then the heroes finally take a turn each. Each hero starts the game with a hand of 4 cards, and during a turn, at the beginning of a turn, they play, whoa, look at that, what happened to the light? Anyways, during the turn, the beginning of a turn, a player can play a card. Some cards will have one-shot effect, so you play the effect and then you burn the card. Some of the cards are ongoing, so you place them face up in front of you and they stay there until you remove them, or until some other card effect, until some other event forces you to remove them. After you play your card and resolve the effect coming from the card, then you can use one power. As I said, each hero has a basic power, but then some of the cards that you play and that will be ongoing face up in front of you, some of those cards also have powers, and if you have multiple powers in play, like in this case if Ra has both of these cards in play, then he has 2 powers in play, but each turn he can only use 1. After playing a card and using a power, the hero draws a card from his over deck and the turn for that hero is over. But if the hero chose to neither play a card nor to use a power, then the hero can draw 2 cards for that turn. After all heroes acted, you have the environment turn, in which you simply draw an environment card, you put it in play, and you resolve the effect. In this case, for example, the pterodactyl thief, at the start of the environment turn, the pterodactyl would destroy all equipment cards. Well, there are further instructions, but this is what happens at the start. So most of those environments are bad stuff for you. Some occasionally may give you some advantages, but well, don't count on that too much. And you keep playing like this. You keep playing villain turns, hero turns, environment turns, until either the health of the villain is reduced to 0, in which case the heroes win the game, or until the villain has made confetti out of the heroes by reducing their health to 0. And the game may not be very subtle when it comes to gameplay and rules, but it is definitely big on theme. This is really what the game is about. The game is loaded with quotations and references, sometimes references to general, like typical categories of heroes, and some of the times references to specific heroes, and sometimes even to specific stories. For example, you have Legacy, who is the Superman type, and when Legacy is reduced to 0 health, you use this side of his card, and illustration clearly is a visual quotation from the famous image from the story about the death of Superman. You have the Wraith, who is the Batman type of character. She uses technology and stealth, but doesn't have superpowers, and she has a Wraitharang. Come on. Oh, well, that's good. That's cute. Then you have Haka, the Savage Haka, who is the muscle, the Hulk type. He's just there to smash things, and just like the Hulk, he can go on a rampage, during which he can just destroy everything he finds on his path, and sometimes even deals damage to his friends when he's like that. The Inhuman Tempest, the Namor Aquaman type of character, controls the elements, and he talks to fish. And I think that this is just the most adorable illustration in the entire game. The Bunker, who is the Iron Man type of character. Tachyon, the quickest woman on Earth, the Speedster, the Quicksilver, Flash type of character. And then you have quotations also when it comes to the villains. Great Lord Voss, look at his face and these spikes coming out. It definitely reminds me of Doomsday, the villain that kills Superman in this story. Baron Blade, who is the arch enemy of Legacy, and now if Legacy is Superman, and the arch enemy of Superman is Lex Luthor, then look at the coincidence. The arch enemy of Legacy is also a mad scientist like Lex Luthor, and just like Lex Luthor, also the initial are the same, BBLL. So Baron Blade being the Lex Luthor of Sentinels of the Multiverse. This game has been a big hit in my group, and I mean a big hit. Now when I go to a game event, people asking me, can we play Sentinels? Did you bring it? Can I borrow it, after we're done here? And several players are already planning to buy a copy as soon as possible. So this really is a game that has a lot of appeal, and this is interesting because I'm pretty much the only player in my group that reads superhero comics. That means that you do not need to be a reader of the genre to appreciate this game and to have a blast while playing it and to become completely addicted by it. So this is definitely a game that can appeal to a vast variety of gamers. It is not maybe very subtle, very elegant in terms of gameplay, but it does what it is supposed to do, which is to create a superhero narrative, and in that the game works very well. Actually, it has such a strong narrative feel to it that sometimes it almost feels like an RPG where you're just using these cards as a reminder of what your hero can do. But it's really about telling a story together with the other players. And the stories that come out from the gameplay are extremely exciting. They really work well, as the superhero genre. You have the fight in the big city, and then the villain moves on the roofs, and you have to follow, and you're fighting on the roofs there. You have to fight differently there. Then the villain goes back to the street and starts throwing cars at you. The police show up, they help you a little bit, but then they're overwhelmed, and you have to go back to fight alone. Just so many things that can happen if you're fighting on the Insula Primalis. You may have an alien invasion and you're fighting against the aliens, and a T-Rex shows up. How cool is that? It really works well in that way, in recreating the feel of the over-the-top crazy superhero stories. But not only that, because there are other things that I like in superhero stories. I like the idea of doing what is right in front of adversity, being able to face sacrifices for the greater good. The idea that a supergroup is more than the sum of its parts, that the superpowers of the individuals are maximized by being combined with powers that are different from those of the other individuals. So I really like this, and this last thing about the group that is more than the sum of its parts to me is even almost an allegory of a society where diversity is appreciated and treasured, where individuals can contribute to the greater good of the society. If it feels like this last minute became a philosophical digression, this is only partially true, because I mentioned all these because these are things that I like in the superhero genre, but also I think these are things that are perfectly captured in this game. When I play this game, I see all of these things working very well. Characters have to sometimes make sacrifices for the group to succeed. The players, of course, have to know what other characters can do, and they have to coordinate actions in such a way that indeed the general action will be more than the sum of its parts. It really gives you a sense of what the superhero genre is about. And of course, some of these things are actually common also to other cooperative games, that you have to work together with the other players, etc. So this is not the only game that has them, but having these cooperative ideas come together with the superhero genre, where those ideas are relevant already, to me this is a match made in heaven. I enjoyed this game a lot. Everybody played it with really enjoyed it, and to me this is such a good representation of the superhero genre that I'm actually going to use it in the future in my classes about superheroes.